What up, y'all? It's Mo from DIM University. Excited to be here with you today and talk a little bit more about the journey we've been touching on. Before, I've been talking about this dream that I had of making it to the NBA. Cut a little short, but I feel like I progressed. I did pretty well. I went from not making the team to seeing that adversity and growing and building and really creating a regimen and a plan for myself to now where we're at now is making that eighth grade C team. And what that eighth grade C team represents as we look at careers, as we look at everyone's journey is taking a step in the right direction, but ultimately not getting to your end goal or your dream career, right? When we think about it, if you had a dream internship to be at, let's just say George Lucas's company with Star Wars, because I've been watching a lot of Star Wars right now. If you had that dream internship to get there and you didn't, but you got to work with a small influencer who shoots a lot of content and vlogs, that's a step in the right direction because before that, you weren't there. So that's where this story really picks up, and that's what we're really going to talk about. How do we move and take a step in the right direction, even when it's not ultimately at our dream career or our dream goal? And what that makes me think of is this concept that I thought of. It's the miraculous of normal. What does normalcy look like? And I thought about this because there's a space, or I would call it a tension, right? A term we've used before, but a tension of being almost at your dream career and taking a step in the right direction, right? You're not necessarily there yet, but you're progressing, you're moving. So there's some tension in there because you're like, I really want this, but I'm not there. And that's one of the things you have to consistently think of while you're going through this period or this transition in your life. Let's talk a little bit about it, right? Eighth grade C team, paint the picture for you. I got on the team, had Coach Dion and Coach Derek. They're actually brothers. Definitely weren't older like Coach Parrish. He was the eighth grade A team coach. Those first few weeks, we started off at practice and we just ran. We didn't even touch a basketball. We were just running. And what I learned from that is they were conditioning us so we could perform as a team at the same level. Because everyone comes in a little differently, right? Some people play basketball every day. Other people play basketball here and there. But when we all came together and we started to build some conditioning together, we were all at that same level of being in shape, moving in a fluid manner as a team. I really want us to touch on this concept of practice because practice is a great thing that we can use as a picture of the work that we need to put into our careers, right? And when we think about practice, it's pretty normal. It's a regimen, it's a plan, right? You might have practice every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then be off on certain days, and those are game days. Let's think of practice as the day-to-day trainings, the work that you're doing at an internship or at a job, right? Those initial steps that you're moving in. So one thing I love to do is always understand the origin of these words. And the origin of the word practice, right? I'm going to touch on it from a verb standpoint and a noun standpoint. When we think of the verb practice, it means to perform an activity or an exercise, a skill repeatedly or regularly in order to improve or maintain one's proficiency. When we look at it from a noun, it's the actual application or use of an idea, belief, or method as opposed to theories relating to it. I failed high school English and college English, wasn't really good at it. So I need to understand what a verb and a noun, right? What are the differences between those two things? So a verb is a word used to describe an action. A noun is a word or other than a pronoun used to identify. So we have an action to describe an action, and we have something that we're identifying. How do those two things play together? Because of my journey on that eighth grade C team, like I said, I wasn't at my dream, but I was making a step in the right direction. And because of that, I had to pretend, or I had to put myself in a mind frame to see that I was going to be on that eighth grade A team, or the next year, the ninth grade A team. And because of that, I needed to put myself in a regiment that was unlike those people maybe on my team, or maybe some of them were in that same situation. But I had to see beyond the current situation I was in. And because of that, it helped me to have a better perspective of the time and energy I was putting into this craft. And let's talk about how does this even play into a lot of the stuff that you all are going through. Well, you have to think about it from a few different standpoints. And I'm going to have 4 points that we really touch on and highlight as we go into this. And my first point of today is going to be humble yourself and remember it is about the team and serving others, not just serving your own intentions. How does that even connect? Because you just told me that I need to put myself in this mind frame. And that's correct, right? That's some of the work that you need to do solo. But there's also teamwork that you can do because there's variables that happen in our lives. And as we go through these things, other people help us in that space. When you're going through these things in your life, you have to humble yourself and make sure you're aware of the surroundings of others and how you interact with those people. Because those people on your team, other interns, those other people who work at the company, even though that might not be the dream company that you're at, they're going to help you progress forward. They're going to teach you something. They're going to give you advice. They're going to maybe provide you with a connection. But if you go in there high and mighty and you're not necessarily understanding their perspective and having conversations with them, then you're going to miss out on a lot of those opportunities. I got to practice after those first few weeks of conditioning. I humbled myself. I learned, I said, oh, you've been on a team before? I've never been on a team. This is something new. One of my friends on the team, he was giving me game. He was like, yeah, man, when you got to go play at these tournaments, we're going to play on these specific days. And if we don't make it to the championship, then we got to move to the constellation bracket and all these other things. I had no idea of that. So that was something that I never registered on my brain to be like, oh, this is how it's going to be when we go into these tournaments, into these games. I just thought they were one-off games. What that might look like for you is, hey, you think you know what it's like to be a graphic designer, but then there's an intern in your program who's like, you know what, this is how you go through structuring your day to get to the completed process or the completed project that they're asking you to do. So those are the moments where you really need to connect with those people and humble yourself. Number 2, you need to maintain and strengthen relationships on your team and outside of your team. So let's get a picture of a corporation, right? High level, not going to go too deep on it. A lot of corporations, they have multiple teams that you're going to be on. So whether you're at an agency or if you're at a small company, they might have a team who's servicing the account. They might have the creative team who's doing all the creative concepts, video, graphic design, all these other things, and they're all working together. And that's what I mean by you might be on the creative team or you might be servicing the account, whatever space, you should interact with the other people on both sides because they have relationships. They know things about the industry that they can teach you and give you information about. And because they work with one another, it's best to know both sides of things because if you're asking someone for something, you need to learn how to communicate with them and have a great dialogue with them so you can get exactly what you need as well. So these are some things that are very important when you're thinking about strengthening your relationships and speaking with people on different sides of your team as well. Now, for me, what did this look like? Well, the thing that I did was I really taught myself how to be a team player. I didn't really know. I played basketball. I was, used to just kind of getting the ball, doing what I needed to do and getting points, passing here and there. But when you start to understand the offense or the flow of something or the system that you're in your career, right? When you learn the system, now you can better refine your craft. So now you can realize, hey, I don't have to necessarily put 20 hours into this, and not saying this to be lazy, right? This is just refining your craft. You might get an idea from your boss, and then your job is just to sketch it or ideate on it and then pass it to the next person on your team to fully execute on the project. Rather than if you're trying to think of the concept, you're stressing yourself out, then you're trying to figure out how to do this other person's job when that's not necessarily your role. That can create a lot of tension, a lot of friction in your life, a lot of stress that is unnecessary when you could really be utilizing your team in those areas. Make sure you're thinking about that. Make sure you're observant of what's going on and you're understanding everybody's role so you know how to best execute on your role in that team. Third one, discipline yourself to create a schedule where you put the extra time and effort to get good at your craft. This is so important. How do you discipline yourself, right? How do you put that extra time and effort into your craft? Well, if you're in school, this is a great opportunity because just how I gave that example on your role in the team, your role might only be to sketch an idea out, to ideate, to put together a call sheet, put together Excel documents, put together a Google Doc. But if you utilize some of the resources also on your campus, in those instances, there might be a club where you all are designing. You're coming up with the ideas. You're learning how to develop that skill set. So now you can put more time and effort into that where you're learning in that side of things. And then you're also learning on the other side of the work that you're doing. And those are some of the things that can help benefit. So if you balance those two worlds out, now you're creating a portfolio over here and you're creating a portfolio of real world work. And those are things that are really important. In my story, how did I do that? Well, y'all remember I was talking about Coach Tony, and we had two teams, right? We had a travel basketball team and then we had a school team. So at our junior high, we had an 8th grade A and B team. And then we also had a traveling team. The traveling team is where I made the C team. I would say it's a little bit more competitive, but some of those players play on the school team as well. What I decided to do was I decided to go and try out for that school team, and I made it onto the 8th grade A team. Did I play a lot? No, but I figured out my role and how I could learn in that space. I got to play at a higher level and grow and develop in that space. And because I had that relationship with Coach Tony, I tried out. He knew he could take a chance on me, and I developed my craft. So when I came back to the 8th grade C team, I was dominating. I was playing at a very high level. And point 4, make sure you're always producing your work at a high level. Don't slack off. Don't let other people influence you in that space. If they do influence you, make sure they influence you for the better. And when you think about producing at a high level, you really want to focus on your dream career, right? You might be, like I said, you're progressing. You're taking a step into the right direction. You're not there yet, but work as if you are at that space. Put all your time and energy and effort into that. And balance, right? Balance is so important when you're producing at a high level. One thing I always like to let students know, and the people who work with us and for us, is making sure when you're producing at your high level, make sure there's balance in between that high level of producing and then doing some of the things that bring restoration into your life, that restore you and make you happy, that inspire you. Because you're only able to produce at a high level when you have a space of creativity, a space of understanding, a space of love, all of that stuff that is so important. And that's one of the last things I want to leave you all with is make sure as you're going through these 4 points, remember each point is so integral into your learning and development. You always want to go into a space humbly, right? You want to maintain and strengthen your relationships. You always want to make sure you have a schedule. That way you can schedule in your time for work. You can schedule in your time for recreational things, hanging out with your friends, doing the things that restore you, bring energy to you, right? And then produce at that high level. And you can produce smartly. I always say work smarter, not harder. Not saying that you don't work hard at all, but you can be very smart with your schedule and lay out time so you can, dissect the project. One of the things I always tell our students is the difference between someone who is starting off in a career versus someone who's been in a career for a long time is how much time does it take for them to execute on a project. Not that you're killing yourself, but you figured out, how do I get from step A all the way to step C, right? Like, how am I moving in that space? But for someone who's newer, it's A to Z, right? You have so many more steps because you're trying to figure it out. So making sure that you're understanding all of this is going to be very imperative. And for me, just to wrap this up, when I was on that 8th grade team, I practiced hard. I built those relationships. I balanced my schedule between traveling basketball and school basketball. And that just helped me become better. And what I ended up doing is I ended up becoming one of the best players on the team. And because of that, I got notice from the other people we'd be practicing around, the other players. It's like, man, you should really be playing with us, all of these things. And because of those things, I was able to step my game up and produce a reputation that the work that I was doing, or the time and the energy that I was putting into my craft, was being done at a high level. And that is ultimately the reputation you want to have that goes ahead of you, right? You want people to know, like, hey, Sam, Steven, Marcus, all of those people are going to produce at a great level. So I should have them on my team, or I should be hiring them, or I should connect them with this person so they can get to their dream career. And like I say, if no one has told you this, I believe in your dream career, and I believe in the steps that you're taking to achieve that dream career. Peace.